Current theories on where the oxygen came from on Earth need to account for an apparent oxygen explosion in the atmosphere, and the source is believed to have been discovered in the form of a slimy rock thing called a stromatolite, which comes in a variety of forms from towers to cones and even large flat bed types as well, and can change depending on the depth of the water that they're found in. Stromatolites are basically a cluster, or rather layers, of cyanobacteria which would bind together, forming a kind of a mat, and cover themselves with a mucus-like substance. Then sediment would get stuck to the mucus and between the small filaments that the bacteria had. Then the bacteria would reach through the sediment and grow through the sediment seeking light and form another layer of bacteria and mucus and cover themselves, and the process would repeat, layer on layer on layer on layer, as they grew larger and larger and larger. The cyanobacteria used to be called blue-green algae, but because they do not have a membrane around their nucleus inside the cell, like other algae do, then the name algae was dropped from the cyanobacteria and is now only reserved for those algae that have membranes around their cell nuclei. Now, the interesting thing is the cyanobacteria are the only single-cell bacteria with no nucleus membrane that photosynthesizes and produces oxygen. And the bacteria family are the ones responsible for fixing nitrogen into the soil. Anyway, moving on. So there they are on the shoreline. They have their water, their sunlight, and carbon dioxide, plenty of carbon dioxide in the air. And the theory goes, as they produce their oxygen byproduct, it firstly reacts with the iron in the water. Over time, the iron oxidizes and falls to the sea floor, and later on we will find this as large deposits of iron ore, which means all of the iron ore deposits found on land everywhere must have once been ancient seabeds. Once the iron ore had all been oxidized and fallen out of suspension in the water, the oxygen was then free to remain in the water and then to make its way into the atmosphere via the usual forms of water to gas exchange, which happens every time the surface of the water is broken, either by crashing waves on the shoreline or other similar action out in the ocean away from the shore. This would eventually lead to an overabundance of oxygen in the atmosphere, and the other bacterial life which didn't use oxygen would die off as a result because the oxygen was toxic to them. And over time, the theory goes, the oxygen also combined with the methane in the atmosphere to form carbon dioxide, which the stromatolites like, and water. And the carbon dioxide and the water don't retain heat as well as the methane does, and that ultimately led to a very, very, very long ice age, which also killed off most of the other remaining life. Of course, the Earth did manage to get out of this ice age naturally without being able to blame humans for global warming. Anyway, if all of this is true, it means that these stromatolite bacteria gave us iron ore, gave us oxygen, got rid of the non-oxygen life forms, got rid of the deadly toxic methane gas in the atmosphere that would kill us, and basically paved the way for larger life forms to exist that need oxygen. The lack of abundance today is attributed to grazing marine life forms which basically ate them. The fossil record apparently shows after each mass extinction event the stromatolite thrived and became abundant, but as the grazing marine life forms recovered and repopulated, the stromatolites declined in number. And this is why they are now only found in unpleasant places today, such as very salty lakes where grazing marine life forms don't go, and in isolated water which isn't full of grazing marine life forms. Interestingly, they have been found in a lake high up in a dormant volcano known as Blue Lake in Mount Gambier in South Australia, which is a state of Australia. And NASA has been studying the other freshwater stromatolites found in Pavilion Lake in British Columbia in Canada to help them recognise the various types of rock formations that past and existing life can make, and the types of floor beds or lake beds or whatever that they actually like to live on, so that they can possibly recognise it or know where to look for it on other planets. How did these stromatolites get to form or get to be present in a lake in a high volcano that erupted last time 6,000 years ago? It was probably due to birds. Nevertheless, if the studies are true, then we can all thank these slimy little rocks for making our current world possible. Please leave any thoughts or comments you have below. Please give the video a thumb up. Please subscribe to the channel for more mysteries, and I will see you in the next video.